there has been so much suppression of this topic. And everyone just wanted to be on the right side of history so bad after the last couple of right side of history things that we just kind of gave a blank check to the trans people. And there are all kinds of people whose motivations are, all over the spectrum. But and many of them mean well. I mean, if you think about, you take a trans woman who hated puberty. She just was miserable going through male puberty and knew that this was wrong for her. And just everything about it sucks. And now she's too tall to really ever pass. Now, if she wants to get rid of her Adam's apple, she'll have to shave it down, et cetera, et cetera. And so she looks back and goes, I wish I hadn't. But what they don't tell you is that when they have done studies on kids who present with gender dysphoria, anywhere from 66% to 98% of them just become gay. We just either grow out of it in general or mostly they become gay adults. And going through puberty can help teach you a way to be actually into your body. And you can learn about your own sexuality. And you can realize there are some people, like if you're, if you're female, it turns out, you're attracted to women. And there are some women who are like femmes maybe, who like you're really attracted to, who really like that you're a female, who really like your masculine energy, but that you're a female. That's what they're into. And so so instead, we're doing this experimental thing because people think that that's what they would have wanted, but maybe they wouldn't be happy because maybe they have a kid now that they had before they transitioned. And maybe they grew enough penis to make a vagina. And maybe, it turns they can have an orgasm now, but if they had blocked their puberty and then gone on to cross-sex hormones, if they'd never had an orgasm before that, it's very hard to develop the neural connections to ever learn how to have an orgasm. And so a lot of this stuff has been well-intentioned, but I've always been problems with these studies and very small samples and all kinds of stuff like that. But
what studies do you seek out and read? Like, where do they come from?
Okay, so I mean, I don't know where. I mean, I just read so many studies all the time, or I'm reading the methodology and the conclusion, the results for the most part. And I don't have perfect scientific or academic literacy, but I'm looking into stuff, and then I'm reading smart people's assessments of these things. So take the Dutch people. That was the Dutch protocol comes from because in the Netherlands they pioneered this puberty blocker treatment.
Right. Okay.
And they were the first to stop it. But they took kids and they gave them these questionnaires before treatment that asked them about their gender dysphoria, like how much do your genitals make you uncomfortable? How much did other people seeing you as this or that? So kind of all these questions, and they rated their dysphoria. And then after putting them on hormones, they gave them the questions again. But then they gave them the opposite sex questionnaire. So now they were saying how much. So imagine you've had bottom surgery, for instance, and you asked the question before, how much does your penis bother you? And you go, a lot. And now they ask you, how much does your vagina bother you? Or actually, no. So you haven't had bottom surgery. This is the people hadn't had bottom, but now they're asked, now they're on hormones, but they're asked, how much does your vagina bother you? And you go, well, not at all.
Okay.
And they go, oh, look, success.
I see. Okay.
So, I mean, that was literally one of the studies that people cite all the time to say puberty blockers are a great idea. And it's it didn't even make any sense. It didn't even, some of the questions made sense, and the dysphoria did go down in some ways, but others of them was of course, they don't have a pussy.
Right.
Why would their pussy bother them? It's literally there's so much. Others of them, there are studies that people cite all the time about trans people being happy with their outcomes, and they were internet surveys where anyone could take them literally as many times as they wanted. It was marketed to people who were very pro trans methodologies like this. So it's just thing after thing like that where.
Yeah.
Then and peer review is completely broken in this country. Everything's kind of broken. Well, almost everybody's bad at their job.
As someone who's just tries to understand all this and is not weighing in with an opinion one way or another, what should the protocol be then if you have a child? So I think what you're implying here is that some, yes, will benefit from puberty blockers, but then some no. Is there conceivably a way to gatekeep in a way that we funnel the right ones into that and then the other ones out so they can just turn into the person that they're going to happily be.
So this is why they're doing it as clinical trials in the countries where they've banned this as the regular practice. But what we're pretty sure of is that there are some kids who are, from the time that they're little, they are insistent, persistent, and consistent about their identification and their dysphoria. And probably the majority of kids who are in that camp, if you have good assessment of that, and it's not the people who changed their mind yesterday, it's not the people who are just started going through puberty and are like uncomfortable with their female bodies and their changes and stuff like that. If you take those kids and you did this, you would probably not have too many people who would have changed their mind. I mean, it's hard. We can't even say, once someone goes through that, we don't know how they would have done if they hadn't. So we can't really say. But regardless of whether that kid always would have persisted in their dysphoria and their desire to transition as much as possible toward being as much as possible like the other sex, there are all of these side effect issues. And side effects not even the right. It's very strange for a child developmentally to not go through puberty when their peers go through puberty. The bone density stuff that people talk about is a little mixed because you might lose some bone density, but once you take the cross-sex hormones or allow real puberty to happen, sorry to say real puberty, whatever, natural puberty to happen, like then you probably will get all or most of it back. I don't know. I've seen mixed studies about the bone density thing. But if you're, so for a while, like some of these, they've done a better job now because like the people who are, biologically born male and then take the puberty blockers, and then go into the cross-sex hormones, they didn't grow enough penile tissue to make the vagina. So for a while they were taking the colon, but then at least one person died of necrotizing fasciitis or something like that. But now I've heard that they have better technology where they're taking something from inside your stomach. And so whether you have the penis issue or you're just nowadays like you're an adult who's changing your penis to a vagina, they actually are like self lubricating now, which they weren't until 3 years ago. Which is always my thing too of like, how do you pull the trigger on getting the pussy now when you know the technology is going to keep improving? Shouldn't you? Well, the people who didn't wait for the self wetting ones have to feel like idiots.
It's like LASIK or something.
Yeah, let's wait till it's cheaper and better.
Yeah.
I don't know. So there are a number of issues like that though. And so we're not really sure how okay it is. And again, so like has this kid had orgasms? Because I started having orgasms when I was 2, but
fuck.
Thank you. But for most people, and then the other thing, if you haven't and then do you teach a kid like how to masturbate so that they can have that connection to their body before you put them on these things? Like that is a whole weird issue. And then the other thing
you can't do that with a boy. Right.
And then the other thing is like this whole puberty blocker, cross-sex hormone thing, puberty blocker thing it's really for, what they call AMABs, assigned male at birth, although it's not an assignment. Assigned, boy to dude at birth isn't, sure. But little males who transition to being women later, they have a really hard time passing because of they're probably 5'10" or more. They have these Adam's apples. Their shoulders are so broad. But if you think about it, like trans men who transition as adults, after a few years of that testosterone, pass. I mean, there's an awkward teenage period where they don't, but eventually they got a beard, their voice is deep enough, and whatever. And you can't tell. No one's looking at whether or not you have an Adam's apple, And so we never should have been doing this, I think, to girls in the first place. I think that, and sorry to AFABs if you want, I just don't think that makes sense. So I think we just need to really go back and go, it needs to be carefully studied which kids we should really be doing this to and have really good, competent people assessing this, put the gatekeeping back. And then even then, there may be slightly better drugs that we could be using. There might be a little bit of a different protocol. And if people want to sign up knowing that they're guinea pigs,
Yeah.
And if the kids and the parents decide together that they are okay with helping us develop the science, I think that's fine. But just telling doctors that, yep, the protocol is you take these drugs that we used to use on sex offenders and we just give that to the kids. And that's, we just, we have this off-label use of chemical castration drugs that we give kids. Yep, that's normal. Like, that's not okay. But careful, controlled studies that people really genuinely consent to and understand the implications of. It's really hard. Can an 8-year-old, can a 10-year-old, can a 12-year-old understand what it means to give up their fertility?
That's a good question.
I'm okay with them not having kids. There's too many fucking people, but they might be upset.
Yeah.